Hey up, hope you're all well. Thanks to all the new subscribers and the old that are returning. It's been massive. I can't believe there's 270 odd subscribers already in just over 3 months. It's unbelievable, so thank you all. I'm doing a really quick one today, just to cover the pond edges and the water level. The two definitely come hand in hand. As soon as I'd finished digging the pond, before I started lining with rocks, I got the liner in. The next point was, for me, was establishing the water level. And because I've got the skimmer, then it is defined by the skimmer. So one tool I did use to help me was just a straight edge with a laser light on the end. And there's multiple gradients on this one, but they're not required really. But the main function was establishing your water level and checking across all widths and lengths that water level was okay. I was fortunate putting the pond in here. The ground's fairly level, so when I came to finishing the dig and then defining the water level, it was fairly simple across the board. There was very little variance from one end to the other. But I suppose you have to consider, if you've got any kind of incline at all, then it's going to affect how your water level is and how your edging is going to be, because you're going to have to build one end up so it's all even across the board, if that makes sense. You just need to establish that the water level is going to be okay across the pond. You're not going to end up filling with water, and it's going to overflow on one end, if that makes sense. That also then determines how I edged the pond, because going forward I knew where the water level was across the entirety of the pond. Using the laser level on the spirit level, I could then determine, I could build the rocks up how I wanted them, just to create different effects. So just for a quick example, on the shallow edge here, I built all the way up to the soil line, and that allowed me to put larger stones that just sit on the soil line and then on the build, on the wall itself. Whereas in other places, knowing where the water level is going to be, you can place, or in my case I placed boulders, so I knew there would be half in the water and half out. Just a nice, more natural effect. The other advantage then of when you know your water level, I was creating a small beach area, and it did only have to be small, but that's just for wildlife to be able to get out of the pond, any wildlife that shouldn't be in there. So as soon as you know your water level, you can then build that accordingly. So once you've defined your water level, most of the walls within the pond are then built up. The majority are built up to the soil line, and then the edging stones are then placed across the soil and the wall itself. One thing, when I took the measurements for the pond, so it's 20 feet long, and I think 12 at the longest point. Obviously I've got a narrow point, which is right in the centre, but one thing that I did take into account, obviously I was digging in a shelf on both sides. The width that you lose in the centre of the pond is not only the width of the shelf, it's also the width of the stones that you've built up. So basically what I'm saying, this part here that's probably 8 feet wide, in the centre there with the shelves and then the rock work that's built up, you end up with a straight in the middle that's probably 2 or 3 feet wide. One of the most important stones, if you like, on this build was the base stone, the waterfall or the stream. I picked the stone out really early. It was a certain shape and I just thought it would fit perfectly. So once I'd established the water line, I was able to put that stone in and I wanted it, well, exactly as it is, to be honest. I wanted it as an entryway into the water, so it had to be on the water line, or in the summer months it will sit maybe 2 inches above the water line. I alluded to it in one of my other videos very briefly, but one of my main concerns while doing the edges of the pond was I didn't want it cut into the grass, if that makes sense. I've seen some ponds where the hole's dug in and then the liner is slipped under cut turf, so it's just seamless from grass straight into the pond. I didn't want to have a mowing edge right onto the pond, so I made the decision early on I was going to hard landscape. So again, making a decision on how I'm going to edge the pond, I decided really early on it was going to be hard landscaped all the way around, so I don't have to worry about cutting the grass near it. The other decision with all the top rocks, if you like, they're right on top of the walls. I picked these out fairly early. The majority of the bigger, easier to place, they're not going to move, they're not going to go anywhere because they're fairly heavy. And I also picked some of the feature rocks. Some of the larger, like this one, don't serve any purpose other than looking nice. This edge was always created with these two flat stones in mind. This was so you can sit on these in the summer. I've touched on before. So yeah, another example you can see down here. I've still got a bit of liner there I've got to cover up, but this is just, that's one large 18-inch rock. But the design choice is that it's half in and half out. As covered off a couple of videos ago, obviously I managed to find the leak and raise this back edge, and that was the mistake I'd made. The edge was way too low. Obviously over time, over the last 3 or 4 months, it sunk down slightly and caused a small leak. So definitely a consideration is the edging. And then with this, my build in particular, I had to carry on the edging effect all the way around the landscaping. So obviously here it comes all the way around, but this is all still soil for planting. Obviously wrong time of year to be showing you the planting, and I'm hoping it all comes back next year, but we'll see. So yeah, basically the main point of the video is just defining the water level really early on, because that has an effect on how you're going to, it had an effect on how I edged the pond and how I created the effect.